Hello, everyone. Thanks for joining us today. Welcome to our webinar. My name is Andrew Townsend. I'm an e-learning evangelist here with eLearning Brothers. Today, we're going to be talking about the Training Arcade and getting a preview of the newest game, Trivia. We're also going to be talking about some of the new language features that have been released. And so we're excited to talk more about that as we move forward. This webinar will be recorded. We'll get a copy of this emailed out to everyone who's in attendance shortly after the webinar, and we'll also post a recording on our website on elearningbrothers.com early next week. If you have questions during the webinar, we'll be ready to answer questions in that questions panel, and we'll try to bring those questions up as we can to get those answered for you. So please use that questions panel as you need it. We'll do our best to get to all the questions that are asked, but if we can't, we'll try to get those answered at least in the webinar email afterwards or in the recap next week. All right, to talk to us about the Training Arcade, we have Jamie McDonald from the Game Agency with us today. Thanks for joining us. We also have Rich Vass, our Director of Custom Solution Strategies, to talk to us about games. So we're really excited to hear what you guys both have to say. Also, just so you know, one of the things we like to do after the webinar is try to follow up as soon as possible. Sometimes it's just to get feedback. A lot of the time we want to make sure that everybody's questions were answered and get some one-on-one clarification after the webinar topics, or about the webinar topics after the fact. We're also going to be giving everyone attending a free eLearning Brothers account if you don't already have one, so you can look forward to that and look for that in your email. All right, without further ado, I am going to go ahead and turn this over to you, Jamie, and I'll make you the presenter.
Great, thank you, Andrew. Appreciate the introduction. I'm just going to show my screen here, guys. Okay. All right, well, welcome everybody. Thanks for joining today. As Andrew said, I'm Jamie McDonald from the Game Agency, and we're really excited to talk to you about the Training Arcade today and some new features that we've launched. For starters, we've launched a new game which brings our arcade up to 5 games, and we've also launched some new translation features which are going to be really great for our global clients. For those of you
Jamie,
who have
it looks like your screen went black. We saw your screen for a moment and then it went away.
Oh, sorry about that.
There we go. Looks great.
Is that better? Okay. Okay. All right, everyone, sorry about that. For the Training Arcade, for those of you who've never heard about it, I want to give you a little bit of background of what it is and how our clients are using it. The Training Arcade is essentially a library of games that are meant to be used as a reinforcement tool for your learning. So your learners go through the learning, they play a game that reinforces the content that they just learned, and it really helps them with engagement and retention. And the best part for you is that it helps you measure the effectiveness of your learning. It really brings about kind of that fun element that is sometimes lost from the learning environment. But the best part about the tool, I think, is that we launched a product in October of last year, which is essentially a game builder tool. So it's a DIY backend game builder authoring tool that allows you to take your own learning content and stick it into the backend of our games and push those games out within minutes. We have been asked over time from our clients, hey, you know, we really want to do this ourselves, because the way it used to work was that you would hand us your learning content, we would put it into the games for you and deliver you back the final game. But we decided to listen to, you know, a lot of the questions we were asked and decided, let's invest time and money into building this platform. So now you can do it yourself. The great part about it is also a very cost-effective solution. So for those of you who wanted to use games and never have before, this is a great way to, use an affordable platform to let you test the waters, kind of take baby steps into using games and see how effective they really can be for you. We're really excited to share that since the arcade launch in October, we've been recognized by the training industry as top 20 authoring tools of 2018. So there's really a lot of momentum building. We've also onboarded over 50 clients, and that's between eLearning Brothers and the Game Agency. So again, lots of momentum around the platform. It was meant to be purposely intuitive, easy to use, really user-friendly platform, so that anyone without programming skills could get their hands onto the tool and build the games out and actually have fun doing it. So, how's the platform used? The games themselves are used in a variety of ways. They can, because they're all web-based, which is great, they can be used by users across any device they're on. So whether they're sitting at their desk doing e-learning on their desktop, or they're in a live event on their mobile phone or on a tablet, the games can be accessed across all devices. A lot of our clients are using them via ILT, classroom training, even large sales events that have 200 or even 5,000 people in multiple rooms. So they're really accessible and flexible. They're also being used for a variety of different learning topics. So anything from new employee onboarding to compliance training, sales training, product training, safety, customer service, leadership development. So, it really runs the gambit. There's no, there's no topic that the tool can't provide well for. Another great aspect of the platform is that all of the games are Scorm compliant. So if you have an LMS and you want your clients to access all the games through your LMS, you can simply publish the games out as a Scorm file and have them access it that way. And then it would pass data back, like things like who's the person, what's their high score, course completion, things of that nature. Of course, the analytics dashboard that's part of the tool, which I'm going to walk you through in a minute, gives you more robust data too, which will help you analyze, individual player behaviors, groups, where the gaps and the successes are in the learning and what information may need to be retaught. For those of you interested, the platform is also XAPI ready. So if you have questions about that, we can certainly address them. And then the other way that most of our clients are publishing out these games is through a web object. So as I mentioned, the games are all web-based. So all you really have to do is take the game link and embed it as a web object into your courses. So if you're building courses in, Captivate, Lectora, Articulate, whatever e-learning authoring tool you're using, you can simply embed that. And then when the learner goes through their course and they get to the part where there's a game, all they have to do is simply click the link and the game launches. How the platform works is that it's a subscription service. So as I mentioned before, there are 5 games in the platform, and the newest game we're going to talk about is Trivia, but I'm going to also go through the other games for you. So when you subscribe, it's an annual license to however many games you choose to subscribe to. So you could choose to do one, or you can do the whole arcade. We generally recommend that you license the entire arcade, and there's reasons for that. Each of the games is a different type of game mechanic, and different game mechanics lend themselves well to different learning environments, different content, and different learners. So some learners may be more gamers, whereas others aren't. Some of the learning may take place in a group setting versus individual e-learning. So there's a variety of different reasons why having your fingertips all of the different games is really a benefit to you. The backend analytics that comes with the subscription is, of huge importance. It's a really big piece of why the platform even exists. The learning is so important during the gameplay, but if you don't actually, have the data to show how, to measure the effectiveness of what you're doing, then you're missing out on a big piece. So with the subscription also comes the game builder tool that I mentioned you have to help you build the games, all the analytics. It gives you a leaderboard functionality too. So if you're looking to bring about some friendly competition in a live learning, you certainly can share the leaderboard. And then it also allows for an unlimited amount of games. So even if you only license one game, you can build out 20 different versions of that game if you want. So if you wanted one for new employees and a separate one for safety and compliance, you can do that. It also allows for an unlimited amount of employees. So it's an affordable price point to be a really nice complement to what you're currently doing and allow all of your employees to have access to it. So what I think I'm going to do first is I'm going to share the front end. So the front end are the games. And I'm going to start with Trivia since that's our newest game. And what I've also done is I've built in the functionality to this particular game example to showcase a variety of different languages. So one of the really amazing features that we just launched is translations. And what translations allows you to do is have your games available in the localized languages depending on where your learners are across the world. So you can choose to just launch a game in one language, or you can do multiple. So this particular game is Trivia, and to give you a little background on Trivia, we were asked by a lot of our clients that we were talking to, we just want a trivia game. We want something to replace our 5-question, boring assessment at the end of our learning, something that's going to be really engaging. So Trivia is essentially that, except we've stepped it up a notch. There are leaderboards and points and visuals and different question types you can ask, and now, of course, there's different languages. So if you happen to build a game in multiple languages, just to show you an example of what can happen. In this particular case, I have 4 languages here. You can choose which one you want. If you're in Germany, for instance, you can choose German as your local language. For purposes of today, I'm going to just show you English as I walk through the game. And then on the back end later, I will show you how the translation feature works. So let me play through this really quick in English. This one is all about whether identifying situations of whether or not it's an emergency and you need to go to the doctor or the emergency room. So I'm just going to quickly play through this so you can see. You'll see here this is asking for registration. That's a optional feature when you're building out the game, so you don't necessarily need that. So for instance, if your learners are accessing your games through your LMS and there's single sign-on, then you don't need to have this feature. Otherwise, you would want to put it in so it identifies who the user is. So let's start the game now. This is just a quick tutorial, so if anyone has never played the game before, they can understand what to expect. This is showing you what your points, the points that you get for questions. There's a timer, so the sooner you answer the question, the more points that you get. There's also streaks, which show you how many questions in a row that you get, and so forth. So here's the countdown timer, and let's begin. And I'm not going to play through all the games in their entirety. I just want to show you how it works. So as I mentioned before, there's also different question types. This is an example of a standard multiple choice. So which pain would be most life-threatening? The answer is heart pain. And you'll see here that it gives corrective feedback. So you have the option when you're building the games to put in feedback on a correct or incorrect response, which is really great. If they get the question wrong, you could always give them the answer in the incorrect space as well, or they'll have an opportunity to answer that question again later. Here's another one. This is an example of a multi-select. So this is where there can be more than one correct answer. This one is an example of a text input. So this is a new type of question format that we just answered, and the answer here is smoke. So I would just simply type in smoke. Now, if you were building this game, you could put smoke or smokes or smoking or different things that you think would be variations on the word so that the user could get it right. Like submit, now I've gotten it right. And you'll see if I get a question wrong, what happens. So in this particular case, this is an image match where you're clicking on an image versus text. And so in this case, the answer should be lightning, speeding, and potential shark attacks, but I'm going to purposely get it wrong so that you can see what happened. And then it says not quite right, and it gives you some corrective feedback so that later you understand what the correct answer is. And then the last one here is another example of a multi-select. And you'll see that I broke my streak down here. I only got 3 right in a row, and there was one that was wrong. At the end of gameplay, it shows you what your best streak was, how many answers you got correct or incorrect. There's a leaderboard function, which again is flexible when you're building out the game, and it shows you can see I've played this game many times, but it shows you, what your ranking is. In this particular case, I got ranked 13 out of the end. So that's the trivia game. And now I'm going to quickly just take you through a few of the other games. I'm not going to play them again in their entirety. So the next game is Jump. Jump is actually the first game that we ever added to the training arcade. It was actually a custom game solution we built out for one of our larger tech clients to use for onboarding new employees. And it worked really well for them, so they decided to use it for sales training, and then we shared it with a variety of other clients who used it for dozens of different iterations. And then we decided, well, we own the code, let's make this the first game launch within the training arcade. So in this particular game, you are the jumper, and this is just showing you a tutorial. All of our games have a quick how to play tutorial for those who've never played the game before, so they can understand what to expect. In this particular case, you're jumping from platform to platform, and the goal is to get as many questions right as you can. So you want to land on a platform that has a question mark, and that's where your content would be served up. So if I can make that happen in 1 second, I'll show you what happens. Here you go. I just landed on that. This is an example of a question that is multi-select, so I'm going to select the correct answers. And one thing I should mention is that all of our games have the ability for you to put in an unlimited amount of questions. So if you want to put in 30 or 40, you certainly can. Most people put in between 10 and 15 questions. The more questions you get right, the more lives you have, which you can see up here. And if you get a question wrong or you fall off a platform, you lose a life. But this is kind of a really fun endless jumper game because the more questions you get correct, the longer you could play. And this is a great opportunity for your learners to really make the content that you just taught them stick by having them actively participate in playing. All these games are meant to have a practice playground for your learners. The next one I'll show you is Scramble. So Scramble is really kind of like Wheel of Fortune without the wheel. This is a great example of a game that may be better for learners who are not necessarily gamers. The way that this works is when you're building out the game functionality, you can build it either as a sentence scramble or a fill-in-the-blank word scramble. So in this case, you have to really think hard about what the answer is, and you're going to be moving unscrambling the sentence in order to place your answer. So in this particular case, providing a practice playground is vital to the learning process because, and all you have to do is start tapping to fill in the correct answer. So I'm going to just do this quickly for you guys. And the answer is because the most effective way for learners to retain information, and I'm just going to purposely get this wrong. I'm going to put something in here, and if, I realize I did something wrong, you just use the undo feature, is to practice, submit, and I got it right. And you'll see up here, I have 14 questions. Again, you can make it unlimited, but you have the ability, to see where you're at within the game. Each time you get a question right, you get a free hint. And that way, later on, if you're having trouble answering, the questions, you can use one of your hints. So this next one is an example of a fill in the blank, word scramble. So training what can have a significant impact on learning? And the answer, of course, is training games. So I'm going to move on to the next one, which is what we call recall. This one happens to be around health and safety in a professional kitchen, but the idea behind recall is it's a visual learning game. The idea is you have an image or a video that disappears after a short period of time, and you're challenged with recalling what you saw. So this is really great for visual identification, memorization, step-by-step processes, maybe what's wrong with this picture, and really great for visual learners. Let me just show you how this works. Really straightforward. You see an image, you'll see down here that the timer is counting down. The sooner I click ready, the more points I'll get when I answer my questions. So I'm clicking on ready, and then I start reading the questions. Which of these violations were visible in the kitchen? There were some rats in there, the stoves weren't clean. Maybe I want to peek back. I can press the peek back button, and then the chef's not wearing a hat, and submit. And you can ask as many questions per image as you want. So you'll just see here, I'm just gonna quickly guess, great attention to detail, and now my next question loads. So again, you can load in as many images and as many questions for those images as possible, and you can even use this in video. And then the last one I'm gonna show you is what we call match. So match is really based on the game mechanic that is probably one of the most popular ones out there. If you've ever played Candy Crush or Bejeweled, it's where you're matching 3, 4, or 5 tiles. This is very similar to Jump in the sense that it is a more gamey game, but the difference is that you're asked questions in advance of gameplay, and depending on how well you answer those questions, that really helps you earn, some elements of the game that are going to help you blow up the board faster. And if you've ever played Candy Crush, you know that that could be a challenge as the boards start progressively getting harder. So here's my first question. I'm just going to answer these really fast. This one happens to be in a world where technology is readily available. What's the top platform trend? Of course, the answer is mobility, and you'll see that I got that right, so I earned my first power-up. The next one I'm going to quickly run through is a multi-select. I earned my second power-up. The third one is 15 to 60 seconds. I've got my third power-up. And we can always share these games after too if you're interested. And the last one is what's the most effective way for learners to retain information? And of course, we know the answer is practicing. So now I've earned my fourth one, and you'll see in a second that it shows me, okay, great, you've now earned these rewards, tap anywhere to continue. And then the gameplay begins. And this is just one example of a game skin. All of the games available in the arcade have different skins. If you would like something that's more on brand, we certainly could do custom skins for you, as well as any other kind of custom integrations or features that you may need on the platform. So I'm just going to quickly show you how this works. If you've ever played the game, you'll see. You'll notice here that sometimes question bubbles come up with an icon hiding underneath. If you match 3 of what's hiding, another question will come up, which I'll show you right now. And here's my next question. I'm going to answer it. Now I've earned even another power up. And then the gameplay begins. You'll see there's a timer. I think it's 45 seconds is what this one is set to for gameplay. And if you want to ever use the power-ups that you have to blow up the board faster, you can do that. So let's move on now to the back end. Okay, so hopefully you guys can all see my screen here. What I want to show you is first the analytics, and then I'm going to show you how to quickly build out a game. It's that easy and fast. So on the analytics side of things, there are 2 views that you would take a look at. One is the player stats, and that lets you really dig into each individual person. And then there's the question stats. So the question stats give you a really good glimpse into how did the group as a whole do on my questions. You know, if 70% of the room completely missed a question, you really could understand where the gaps are in the learning, and you can go back and reteach that information. But let's just say you wanted to check out an individual player. So I want to see, how did Anita do? You know, Anita, she played 3 sessions, and you could see in her sessions which questions she got right or wrong, how many attempts it took her to get right or wrong. These are also, you know, you can change the ranking on here if you want to see, you know, questions correct versus high score versus ranking. You can also always change those, and the same goes down here for question stats. When you want to share the data out with your colleagues. There are two ways to do that. So you could either export the data as a CSV file, or if you have some colleagues that you want to set up as a viewer admin, you can quickly go over to users, and then you can add a user. And then when you type in their name and information, you select a viewer, and then you save it, and then they'll automatically get pinged that they are now a user, and they'll have their own login information to go back to doing that. There's also a leaderboard function, and that allows you to use the leaderboard during a live event if you want to bring about that friendly competition I was talking about earlier. And then the last feature I'll mention here is just the custom date ranging. So if you want to compare data from one group of learners to another, maybe over time, you could do that. We could also build in custom functionalities for you if you needed to do things like compare countries or geos or regions, so that let's say your regional managers have a glimpse into just who, the employees within their region and how they're doing. So any questions on this, we'll take at the end if you're not already asking them. And I'm going to move into building a game. So one thing I didn't mention earlier is that when you have a subscription to the Training Arcade, it comes with one admin. That admin is the person who has the rights to go into the system, see all the analytics, and build out the games. If you want additional admins, we certainly can add those for you. But the way it works is you click on New Game, and you'll see that I have a subscription to all 5 games here. If you only had a subscription to 1 or 2 of the games, then only the games that you had would pop up. So let's just say that we're going to go ahead and build a trivia game. So I'm going to click on trivia, and you'll see that there's 2 pieces to building the game. One is putting in the real basic game information, and then the second part is adding in your questions. So the basic game information is things like, what do you want to call the game? You put a name in here, Jamie's game, and then it'll automatically populate into your game URL. You can also choose here what you want your default language to be. So if you only need this in English, then leave it in English. If you want it in English, but you also want it in other languages, you can also choose to keep your default language as English. Or if you're in Turkey, or you're in China, or in one of the other countries where the different languages are available, you can choose to pick whatever language you want to be your default language, and so forth. So I'm just going to set this in English for now. Then you have things like how many seconds do you want the learners to have to answer each question. So this is adjustable. You can require a pass-fail or not. So if you say they have to get at least 90% right, or whatever you want to adjust that to, then you can set that there. Or if you don't need it, you can set it to 0. There's also a tweet button. So if the players actually want to tweet out their scores to their audience, they certainly can do that. I'm going to set that at no for now. And then you have the option of randomizing questions or not. So the purpose of not having them randomized would be for an example where if you have questions that you need to be asked in a particular order, then you can have it set to no. If you don't care how the questions are being sent out to them through the game, then you can click yes. Another option is user registration. So as I mentioned earlier, if you have your players accessing the games through an LMS, through a single sign-on, then this feature may not be needed. Otherwise, you can have them fill in information about themselves, first name, last name, email, employee ID, whatever information you want on there. And again, that's optional. And then you have another optional feature, which is whether you want the leaderboard to show up on the game over screen or not. So the purposes of having it clicked yes is that so when the learner is done playing, they can see how they ranked against the top 10 players. As I mentioned earlier, there's also templates available for each game. So you can pick one of the templates that's available, or you can load your own in. You can have us design custom skins for you, and we can load that in so you have those as options. There's also music tracks you can pick, and you can listen to little snippets of it to decide which music you think would make the most sense playing in the background of the game you're creating. And then the last piece is the splash screen. So this is the first screen people see when they come to your game. So as you can see here, you can load in either a company logo. It tells you what the pixel size is. You can type in the name of a game instead if you wanted it to be something like this. Let's go in here. I'm going to call this. I can't spell my name. Jamie's game. Okay. Or you can change the entire background screen here by just uploading a new image. And then the last feature I'm just going to show you is that you have an optional additional screen where you can type in some information that could be something along the lines of, hey, we just spent, an hour learning about XYZ topic. Now we're going to play a game. Let's see how much you learned. Anything you want to put in here as additional messaging for your learners. And then you click save. And then the next feature is you go right to questions. So for the question part of this, you would click on add question and you would start typing in what your question is. So for me, I'm going to just say, let's say, the Training Arcade provides, And then we can put in a few different answers. So let's say we're going to say it provides fun, it provides great ROI. Let's do another answer, it provides affordability, and so forth. And so in this particular case, it's not a multiple choice, it's actually a multiple select because I have more than one correct answer. So I'm going to say these are all correct, and then you would just click save. And then if you want, let me go back to my questions. You can add in a, some sort of feedback. So it could be as simple things as way to go, or it could be a trainer reinforcement point about that question. And then the same thing for incorrect answers. If they didn't get it right, you can actually put in what the correct answer is here, or you can put in maybe a hint so that the next time they see the question, they can get it right. And as you can see here, once I started creating questions, the translation feature popped up. So this is the really, new exciting feature we want to talk about. When you were on the game info screen, the language that you're picking here as your default language is what the game pieces of the game are going to, what language they're going to be in. And that's things like the start button, the tutorial piece of it, the game over screen, and the leaderboard. When you get to the translation, that's what language the actual questions are going to be in. So there's a few things that you can do here. You could either say, okay, I want my game to be in French, and then the original English questions that you typed in would be here, and then you would start typing in your answers in French. Or we've made it even easier for you. What you can do is click on, wait, let me just delete this, click on translation template, and then you can simply just download a translation template. And I have one available that I already loaded up to show you. And so this is what it would look like. If you put the questions in originally in English, these would have been left blank, and then you could go in and add your answers in German, in Spanish, in French, in Turkish, or whatever languages you want. And when you're done adding in the spreadsheet, you simply would then click Upload Template File, and that would automatically put all of the languages into your game, and then you have everything in there. The last piece I'm going to just show you is, how to publish out a game. I know we talked about it briefly when I introduced the arcade, but I want to just quickly show you what it looks like. So you have three options here. One is to simply just take the URL and email it out. Now that's not how most people do it, but it's an option. The other two are copying, pasting this link, and embedding it as a web object into your course material. And the last is downloading either one of these two Scorm files and having your game be accessed through an LMS. So I know I've just talked you guys through a lot of the back end. I hope that you found a lot of simplicity with it. It's really easy tool to use and very easy to onboard the admins in your office who might be using this tool. So I'm going to now turn it over to Rich Vass at eLearning Brothers. But the last thing I want to mention is that if anyone has interest in getting a free trial of the arcade, so you can actually get your hands on the tool and see how easy it is to build, please let us know, and we'd certainly be happy to set you up with that. So thanks.
Before you pass it over to Rich, we do have a couple questions for you that we'll take right now. We talked about embedding the games into a software like Captivate or Storyline. What about an LMS?
Yeah, so that was the other option. So as I was mentioning when I was talking about the publishing, if they want it through an LMS, then they would download the Scorm file feature. There's two different Scorm file packages that are an option they can choose, and that's how they would access it through the LMS. The other way was to embed it as a web object into the courses. Hope that makes sense.
Okay, excellent. Another one is, how many people can create a game? Is there only one person per license, or can you have multiple people creating games with one license?
Yep, great question. So each subscription comes with one admin, and that's the person who can create the games. If you want additional admins, there's a charge for that, but you certainly could buy additional admins.
Okay. And then you had talked about custom skins for games. Are those an extra cost, or can we upload our custom skins for free?
They are an extra cost. There are two ways to do it. One is we could either do it for you, and you can give us your brand guidelines and we can create them for you, or we could give you our specifications and then you can design the games to spec. But once you've designed them, you'd still have to give them to us so we can upload them into your system so they're accessed where all the different templates can be.
Oh, okay. All right, great. That's all the questions that we have right now. I'm sure we'll get more questions as we go. We'll take more questions towards the end. Rich, I'm going to go ahead and pass the screen over to you.
Okay, great. Thank you. All right, thanks, Jamie. I have had the good fortune of working with Jamie and all the great folks at the game agency for, man, I think it's been a year and a half, close to 2 years now. And the training arcade, which has recently become part of the library offerings at eLearning Brothers, have really, they've really elevated. Many of you may already have seen that. And I've seen a number of games added over the years. I've been around with eLearning Brothers for about 6 years, and so as the libraries have grown, our storyline games, our Lectora games, or our Captivate games, I mean, many of you may have seen those. I think the real difference with the training arcade is really three major commonalities that you'll see in training arcade games that Jamie was just talking about. It's this notion of there's always a set of rules, right, that the user, the learner, has to follow the player. So those rules are important. And the navigation tutorial that Jamie was showing you give everybody a sense of what they need to do. And then there's a strategy to help the learner succeed. So not only do they get some rules to follow, but then there are going to be some little bonuses or some little things along the way to help them get to that end goal. And then there is a true win state at the end. A lot of times I think the games that we will throw into a training or an e-learning course might have some multiple choice questions to be answered or some true false questions, and then you're going to get some points, and then that's about it. So we've really embraced everything that the game agency has brought to the table with those elements. And what I'm going to do is talk a little bit more about some of the games that Jamie brought up. So I've got a couple here that I'd like to show you from the custom perspective. So I'm on the custom team at eLearning Brothers, and our goal is to craft e-learning courses for our clients from A to Z. Clients from Amazon to Zappos, I like to say, and everybody in between. Using these games from an instructional design standpoint, and why I think they elevate the current, well, I won't say the current, but maybe the traditional method that we typically will follow. Why I feel like these are a little bit higher on the scale of the instructional experience for a learner. I'd like to start with this one here, this to call or not to call game. This is the trivia game that Jamie was pointing out a little bit earlier. There's a few things in here that I really, really like. She kind of just stepped through it really quickly, but if you think about it, if you're in healthcare, right, and this is a doctor game or it's a first aid training game, and your goal is for the learner to make decisions quickly, right? Because you've got a waiting room full of patients, and one of your KPIs as a let's say an emergency room technician is to help reduce the amount of wait time. You need to quickly make decisions, right? So one of the reasons I love this game is because it gives us a chance to be presented with an actual scenario. I'll just jump through the tutorial here, and then have the learner make a decision quickly within a timed frame, a number of minutes or a number of seconds in this case. You see that our meter is dropping here, and if I want to get the best score, I need to quickly make the best decision. And then my points are based upon how well I do. So that kind of structure adds an additional element. I mentioned the strategy, right, to help learners succeed. If we want them to, we could even give them a particular metric that says we'd like to see you get X number of points. If you get X number of points, then you're going to indicate that you've got a good grasp, not only a grasp of the content, but an ability to recall it quickly and act upon it quickly. So from an instructional design standpoint, I really like that kind of an approach, and I love the way it's all mixed up too. So I can come in and type in, the right answer. I have to quickly make sure I'm using different parts of my brain, right? So from a cognition standpoint, it gives us a number of ways to really challenge the learner. So it's a different experience than what we might normally expect. Let me show you another example. So this one's kind of cool. This is an actual course that we just recently completed for one of our custom clients. PayPal has been an eLearning Brothers custom client for a couple of years now. And this particular course is anti-bribery and corruption training. We'll walk through just a couple of screens here. We've all seen this type of training before. We've all we all have to tick the box, right, for these types of trainings in our organizations. And so the idea to make it more engaging or make it more interesting becomes really compelling. And in fact, when we told this particular client at PayPal, who's an international person that we work with, you know, she's somebody who we've worked with over the years on various courses. And when we introduced the concept of the jump game to her, it was exciting because it changes, and as I mentioned a minute ago, it elevates the experience. So in this case, we chose the jump game. I'm going to jump to the final assessment. So this was built in Articulate Storyline. As Jamie mentioned, we can drop the game in as a web object, which is what we did in this case, right at the end. So it's packaged and it becomes a part of the Scorm package that then is uploaded and then rolled out to all PayPal users globally. But you can see, you know, we get some instructions along the way, just like Jamie was showing us. And then all of the questions here, and I'm using my arrow keys. Sorry, it's a little choppy on the screen share, but as I'm jumping from question to question, I'm actually able to get reminded of the content. I actually, you know, the PayPal instructional designer is able to actually drop in their questions and their answers. And then we got the learners responding along the way, getting feedback if they answer it wrong. And then the goal is to get as high as they possibly can. Something about this dynamic, I'm going to steal this shamelessly from the game agency, is it allows learners to engage with content willingly, repeatedly, and with excitement, right? So this is something they may come back to. And we haven't yet rolled this out at PayPal, so it's just in final beta mode. And so they're about to release it for this year on this particular training topic for anti-money laundering and bribery training for compliance. But to actually have users come back to something like this and take it again in order to get a higher score is really compelling. Jamie mentioned that the questions are endless. So it's an endless jumper game. The higher you go, you eventually get up into the stratosphere. Now you're in the universe, and you know there's stars and Milky Way galaxy all around. So it really is a fun way from an instructional design standpoint to engage the learners a little more deeply. Let me jump over to this one too. I'll show you a couple more from an instructional design standpoint. So this is another one that Jamie had showed us. This reminds me of a project I worked on years ago. I'd had a contract as an instructional designer in my previous life with the Air Force, and my goal was to help hazardous waste operations supervisors, you know, learn more about, you know, how to better manage their hazardous waste site. And we're talking about things like jet fuel and, you know, stuff that they need to dispose of properly. So I had the idea to take pictures of their site that, you know, showcased a whole lot of mistakes and problems, and then have the learner identify those problems and get points. If I'd had this back in the day, this would have been a no-brainer. So this is awesome. And it's exactly what that is. It's a cognitive exercise. So I could answer a bunch of multiple choice questions about, okay, what are the rules for things that should or should not happen in a kitchen? And I could just, you know, kind of regurgitate those answers based on the training that I just received. But in this case, when I actually have to think about what I'm looking at, try to then connect the dots in my head on what I just learned, the cognition goes to a whole new level, and I can see, okay, here are the things I noticed in this case. There was vermin infestation. Chef wasn't wearing a hat. The stoves are not clean. I click submit. I get the right answer. I go to the next one. So, you know, those kinds of options, and where it's timed, again, right? There's that strategy I mentioned. There's an actual focus here. Really helps, I think, the learner laser in or get laser focused on exactly what their objective is. So let me show you one more here. And again, Jamie already showed this one. I love the Scramble game from the perspective of teaching learners about what to say. And it maybe drops into a soft skills kind of an approach, perhaps. Sales training, right? So if there's a particular way I should be introducing a topic, maybe it's my elevator speech, right? I'm a new salesperson at an organization, and I've got a one-sentence elevator speech about why my product is better than the competitor. I'm going to learn that in the training, and now you need to actually demonstrate that you get it. So in this case, as Jamie mentioned, you know, and a lot of times we have to, we're putting in our information here, but you don't always have to register that way if you've got a single sign-on through your own LMS. But so in this case, you know, I'm able to actually drop in and build the actual scenario. And I get a little, you know, I get some helps along the way as I need them. I can earn these little helps as I go. So it might be conflict resolution, let's just say. So Franklin Covey has been a client of ours over the years. And you think about the 7 habits of highly effective people, right? As I'm having to think about, okay, what are the, in this case, what would this habit be and how would I apply it? The chance to actually apply what I'm learning in a way that's just much different from just to answer these questions and get some points is what really, really becomes compelling about games like these. So I could go on forever with all kinds of ways in which to build instructionally sound scenarios through these types of games. Many of you who are joining us today, no doubt, I think are instructional designers. So I think you can kind of get the idea on what's possible there. So hopefully you'll find the same kind of lift or elevation that we've had on our custom team for our clients in using the training arcade games.
Excellent. Thank you so much, Rich. This is it's cool to see them in action and see what they're up to when you put them into a course and how they really apply. We had a question here. Is this presentation being recorded? Yes, we'll get this, like I said at the beginning of the webinar, we'll get this forwarded out to everyone who's in attendance. We'll also be posting this on our website early next week. I did want to show this as well. Get this up on the screen for a moment here. A few more questions are coming in wanting to know about demos, about costs, about things like that. The information on the screen is the best way to get the information that you need. You can give us a call at 801-796-2767. We've got all the training arcade games, and we'd love to put those in a package for you so that you can jump in and get using these today. We also have these included in our new ELB Master Suite, which comes with a game. It comes with a lot of templates, comes with some customizable courseware things, because we do understand that these games are perfect to be implemented inside of your courses and to really improve your training. Also there on the right side of the screen, you'll see ELBX. ELBX is now 11 days away. Come to Salt Lake City and hang out with us. Rich, are you going to be at ELBX this year?
Absolutely. I'm super excited about it. Like Andrew said, our first ever user conference, so I can't wait.
It's going to be a blast. Jamie, are you going to be able to make it to ELBX this year?
I will not be there, but one or two of my colleagues will represent.
That'll be great. So come and chat with people from the game agency, talk more about games, learn more about these awesome training arcade games, and come talk to instructional designers and just learn about everything e-learning at ELBX this year. So you can learn more about that at elearningbrothers.com. Thanks, everybody. Thanks, Jamie. Thanks, Rich, for joining us. And we hope to see everyone next time.
Thanks, everyone. Appreciate your time.